Yes.
Yeah.
I did.
Because that
bit's important, really, I think, for what we're going to discuss, or what we are discussing, or what we will be discussing. I think that part of what we just discussed there is quite important, really, for people.
Yeah.
You can discuss it again. Good evening, folks. We're a wee bit late. We're having a wee chit chat behind the scenes sort of thing. But we're 10 minutes, so that's fine. It's only 10 minutes, you know what I mean? Anyway, tonight we are joined by two esteemed gentlemen. I'm going to build Garry up a wee bit as well, because he's quite small. So we have, for the first time joining us, we have Max Muir, aka the Genius of Bannockburn. And you should recognise the guy underneath me, Garry from the Society of William Wallace. Gary's been with us a couple of times. So we thought we'll bring him back on again because we've missed his cheery wee face. Right?
Aye, all right.
I'll need to say something, you know what I mean? I've seen your holiday snaps, Garry. Come on. Seriously. And enough said about it. We'll change the subject abruptly on that one. He's either topless or drinking. Put it that way. Do you know that's a
fairness, mate, it's actually quite funny. We were in Blackpool yesterday with my daughter and my little dog, and we're in it's a beach pub. It's down there, a beach sort of beside the water. It's lovely. It's expensive in fairness, but it is nice. And it's funny, we were talking about when my wife and me were down there one day. We were down for a couple of days, and and it was beautiful. It was like Spain, to be honest. It was absolutely roasting. If you close your eyes, then opened it, and not said you were in Blackpool, you'd have thought you were in Spain. You'd the water there. You were right on. It was beautiful. And we were just talking about it, and we were sort of saying that we were standing there, and this guy walked in with this William Wallace Braveheart T-shirt on. Do you know what I mean? I've never seen it before in my life. And I was like going, that's absolutely minted, mate. I really like that. And I started speaking to the guy. And he was a Scouser. He wasn't even Scottish. He had nothing to do with being Scottish. He just loved this T-shirt and he loved Wallace, whatever, which was weird. And then there was a part in it where he's going, I was reading the back of it, like, because I wanted to know, like, historically wise, whether the T-shirt was right or not. Because there's a big loads of stuff on it. Then he said, if you go into my neck and look on there, it tells you a little bit more about it as well. So we're in this bar, we've had a few beers, he's obviously had a few beers as well. If you try and imagine it, I've got this guy's T-shirt like open like that. I'm kneeling behind him, like looking behind his neck, trying to read what it's saying on this little T-shirt inside, talking about the history of it. And my wife's just sitting going, Garry, see people looking at you too. I don't know what they're thinking, but it's not looking right, to be honest with you. So it was quite just when we were there yesterday, and that sort of came into my head, really. So I think that's what we were saying before, to a point, is that that's the one thing I like about Wallace, is that that's why Braveheart, I think, was so successful. Because every country's got a William Wallace. It might not be William Wallace, but it'll be like somebody specific to their country. And I think that's why the film itself is so successful worldwide. And whether people talk about Mel Gibson or whether they don't talk about Mel Gibson, and whether it was right, wrong, or indifferent that he played the part, he put the cash up, he put his neck on the line, and historically wise, we all know it's not right. But what it did for, the Society of William Wallace at the time, for me, if we did anything, it was William Wallace, right? This is who William Wallace was. And then you could then talk through that. But after Braveheart, we didn't need to tell people who William Wallace was. They already knew who he was. They'd already watched the film. Do you know what I mean? So it made our job a hell of a lot easier, to be honest with you. And I think it's a shame, in conjunction with Outlaw King, I think that's the first film that came out, which I didn't think was that good with Robert the Bruce, to be honest with you. It probably, I think Bruce needs a like a Bravehearty type of film, if that makes sense.
I think it needs a big budget epic.
Yes,
saga.
That's what I mean.
The Outlaw King was good, but it didn't touch that. And when you look at other Bruce movies, the one Oliver Reed, at the Bruce. It was great when they were making these cheap movies just to put it on the map.
Yeah.
And I love seeing them on the map. It creates awareness. They're not historically accurate and stuff like that, but they do get tongues wagging and they get people talking, and they make people go and see them. They make people go see places. It keeps the history alive.
Yeah.
Accurate or not. Personally, Braveheart, I thought was brilliant. I still watch it periodically here and there.
Yeah,
I still watch Outlaw King. I still watch The Bruce. And it's the acting's terrible. I suffer it going through. And the Bruce story's got all the ingredients for an epic saga, and they could easily make a movie on the Black Douglas, James Douglas. They could even make a movie on one of the events at Bannockburn itself. You could get a 3-hour epic saga out of that. So all the power players are there, from the Scots, English, Irish sides, Welsh sides. They're all there to have strong characters and to have big budget projects going on.
I mean, for me, I thought it was quite scary. We were in Trim 6-7 weeks ago, which was for Bannockburn, like 40, whatever, and Mel Gibson was there. I then gave him a bit of the Wallace Hope. Now, as I've said this before as well, I know they're all actors and that's their job and what they do, whatever. But the bit of Wallace Hope we gave that I presented to Mel Gibson and to the rest of the actors there, you don't see it in the video when I'm giving it to when I'm talking to Mel. But he actually said, "Wow," do you know what I mean? And at the end of it, he was genuinely like, "You know, this is a bit of history I've got." And when you speak to the actors and the actresses with regards to the film as well, and we gave them all a little bit as well, especially the Scottish people that's in it, they generally are aware of the impact that Braveheart in Scottish history had on the nation. They are aware of that, and they're very proud of that. And it was quite touching, really, to hear them. You know, it wasn't just another job to them, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? They were genuinely proud to be part of what Braveheart represented. And I'm a great believer as well, is that there's about 3 or 4 things that I've watched film-wise. One was to do with, I think it's Oranges and Lemons, I think it's called. I can't remember offhand, which is to do with the Norwegian resistance in the Second World War, which I knew absolutely zilch about, to be honest. And I went, watched the film, the film was brilliant, to be honest. But then I've then went and I've read up on it, Googled it, got a couple of books on it. And then another film that's out now, which is, again, it's a great film, but watch the film and then read up on it, because the film, a bit like Braveheart's totally garbage. Like the actual storyline of it's absolutely rubbish. And it's
exactly with Robert the Bruce.
Well, basically, these things. But the thing about it is, again, I've then went, it's the Unsavoury Gentleman, I think it's called, to do with they go and nick 3 ships or something like that. Brilliant film. But it did actually happen, and it happened in World War II. And it's quite significant in the film, because if it went wrong, the Spanish would have maybe went on the German side. It created a whole very, like, total different maybe result in the Second World War. So films, and the thing with Braveheart, I mean, if you think back, Max, I mean, Braveheart, I mean, my friend who's the ex-convener of the Society, Davy Ross, who's unfortunately passed away.
I remember
David. I mean, Davy's a legend, mate. And Davy's book was number 1 in Scotland on the trail of William Wallace. And I think, again, if you went down, you'd another 2 or 3 books to do with Wallace. So people watched the film, but in fairness, people went out and then bought books and Googled it or did whatever, to actually find out the true story. So whether the film was accurate or whether it wasn't, the same with Outlaw King as well, whether it's accurate or not, people go away to find out. So the film, for me, and both films, enable us. I mean, we've got a guy in Liechtenstein who loves Wallace because of Braveheart. His name's on sort of one of the plaques, one of the monuments that we built, because he gave us five grand for it, and that's to do with a film that he got to hear about it. And, you know, if you get involved with history, Max, as well, you know as well, it makes your job easier because if you're there and after Outlaw King, you're talking about Robert the Bruce, people already know who he is. They've seen the film.
Yeah.
Okay, you can then go, well, actually, that didn't happen. This bit's a bit rubbish and blah, 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 blah. But the basics is there. And if you think about it, like with Wallace, if you go back in the times, I mean, you'd Blind Harry, who's going round wee places. He was making a living out of talking about William Wallace, and that's how people word of mouth. That's how it got. Then you had the book coming out, Blind Harry's book, which in Scotland was the second best-selling book in Scotland, apart from the Bible. At the time, so that kept Wallace's name going, and then we then get modern times, so we're into films now, and then you get Braveheart. Do you know what I mean? And then I think because of the success of Braveheart, they then try to do it with Outlaw King, which was still good. But I think, as you're saying, I agree. I think if you're into Bruce, you'd be wanting some sort of blockbustery sort of film. You do.
Oh yeah.
I
would love to see that.
I'm just going to jump Laura's comment. Laura's party us. An all gentleman panel it would be if you not in Gaffer. That's a sort of a wee dig at me. So I'll talk to you tomorrow, dear, about that comment that you've just made. Just before we come back to Braveheart, but this is the first time I met Max. Can you tell us a wee bit about your channel? Because I found you on TikTok, obviously.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. To be perfectly honest, I started my channel so that I started filming and I just started with a phone and stuff. And I thought I'd quite like to go around and do some of the stuff so that I would have something to look back on when I got older and I couldn't walk the ground anymore. And, I've always had, since I was 10 years old, in my first school trip to Bannockburn, that's what ignited my passion with Scottish history and the Bruce. And equally, I've been adrenalised, you could say, because I do get carried away with it, with the Wallace and the Bruce, the Douglas, all of them. And I started going out, started filming, started getting a good feel for it. And I thought, you know what, I want to tell the story. I actually want to tell this man's story, but I want to tell the story how I see him as well. Mm-hmm. And like I says, we've all got our own version of Wallace, Bruce, Douglas, et al. And I'm equally intrigued with Edward I, Amar de Valence, Giles d'Argentan, these great knights, and some of them might be hated and everything. We wouldn't have these stories without them. So they're all power players in this great struggle. So when I started going out there and filming, I've built my own profile of who they are in my head. And I go to these places. I've got an extensive list of projects, but I go to these places and I feel it. And what I want to do, the purpose of my films are that you don't know your history, that you feel it. I want to give it a heartbeat and a pulse because that's what I feel about it. And are you the same as me, Max? That when you're there, you know, whether you're at Bannockburn or Stirling or wherever with Scottish history, you're walking the same sort of roads, you know, that Wallace was, Bruce was. You know, I'm there. I'm right in there. Yeah,
and I think that gives you that little buzz as well. You know that you're there where these.
I'm buzzing when I do it. I'm not there to give information. You can get that anywhere. You can get that in a dry, dusty old book. You can go on. I love presenters that are quite animated, that really feel it, and I can tell that they feel it because that's infectious. It's contagious. And the amount of people that have come back to me saying, "You've made me go out and visit that place," or I've bought a book and picked this up, and I thought, great, because that's why I'm doing it.
And I think because of what you're doing, Max, I think one of the things, I mean, I've read books on Glencoe before I went to Glencoe. John, I always get his name wrong. Is it John Pebbles or John Peoples? I always get mixed up with him, but I think his books are really good anyway. And then when it starts, he's talking about when you go into Glencoe, and he's talking about the mountains and blah 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 blah, and that's why I think it's good at what you do, because people can see it. So when I went to Glencoe, I'm then going into, that's what John Pebbles was talking about. So when I read his book again, I'm going, I've seen that. I know what he's talking about now and whatever. So I think with the likes of YouTube and like people like yourself, I can't remember the boy with the beard as well, that does Scottish stuff as well. I think it's great because people can actually see it rather than reading it and then trying to envisage it in your head, but you can. But because of what you're doing, you're getting the best of both worlds, really. You're getting a bit of history there. And you're actually seeing what you're talking about as well, which I think makes a massive difference, to be honest.
When I did my recent film on that Wallace killing the sheriff of Lanark, I wanted to do it for English eyes, so I called it A Killer on the Loose. Yeah. There was a young boy, I used to visit my cousins in Lanark. And if you're brought up in Lanark, this is before the murals on the wall, the sword, and that. You just had the statue, and someone says, that's Wallace's house. But you got your imagination. So if you're brought up in Lanark, it's hard to escape William Wallace, the legend or the facts. And when I went back there to film that, so many boyhood memories and everything. So I was living and breathing it again and just putting it onto film. And the amount of people that are going to Lanark now to see that and walk through these streets, and what I wanted to do, it's hard to bring a housing scheme to life. It's hard to bring history to life in modern day development. And that's my goal, is to try and give people a sense of place, so they can see through that. And they can actually see something unfolding before their eyes, and there's a story in there. And I think, fact mixed with legend and stuff. But like I say, it's got a heartbeat and a pulse, Gary. Yeah,
no, it does, mate. And I think it's. I mean, even like with us, I mean, that's why. I mean, for me, that's why Davy Ross was so good, because. And I said it before, and I say it again. I mean, you'd fight today if you listen to Davy Drop doing a talk for fight. You would fight. You'd be like going, right, where's my gear? Because he brought the whole. I mean, the best thing I can probably tell you, we did a thing with we did a like a bus trip with a couple of the Tartan armies, and then we did one. I can't remember which Tartan army it was. I think it was. I can't remember. Anyway, there's two guys in that. So it was like Rob Royce, and we went to Rob Royce and Rutherglen, Bella the Bray. Then we went to Stirling, and we did it. We went to Camberth, Kenneth Abbey, whatever. And there was two guys in my pub, right, who were the loudest guys in the world, especially with a drink, with a pain in the neck. I got on great with them, but they were just do your nutting. Do you know what I mean? And when they had the drink, it was like, I'm better than you, so I need to be louder than you, and you're louder. And it's just they were do your head in. So they came up to me and went, I've heard you doing this William Wallace thing on Sunday. Do you mind if we both come? And see, I was like that, oh, for the love of God, seriously, lads, no, right, aye, all right, neighbour. Like, I couldn't really say no, if that makes sense. And they got on the bus. We're away for probably three and a half hours. Got on the bus. Davey started talking about what we were doing and then places we went to. These two guys never opened their mouth for 3.5 hours. And then we get back into the pub, and they went, Garry, see if you're doing that again, going to let me know. That's the best 3.5 hours I've ever had in my entire life. The guy was amazing. And they just shut up. And, in Camberth Kenneth, if you're in Camberth Kenneth, it's just 4 walls. Scott, you've been there with us when we did some filming. And it's just 4 walls. And Sweeney, who's one of the boys that was really alive, he said, Garry, at one point, I was expecting Robert the Bruce and William Wallace to walk in, because Davy just brought the whole thing to life. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's something it's a wasted, it's a shame he's passed away, mate, because that, you can't give that to anybody. That's just something you've got. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And he would, I used to get out with Davy and not say a word. I used to go and just buy a drink. Oh, you go, big man, you talk. I'm saying sod all. You keep talking to me about what you know, your knowledge, and the whole lot of it. Do you know what I mean? And That's it.
That's the thing. I mean, Gordon as well, Gary. You know,
Gordon's brilliant, mate.
I don't know if you've met Gordon, Max, or no. Gordon's the guy in the Rates or Wallace trail. You know, I mean, we've done 4 episodes and we've done quite a few different Canvas Kenneth, run the Stirling Bridge, you know, done Glasgow as well, etc. And standing listening to Gordon, you know, I mean, I will use Canvas Kenneth as an example. You know, as you guys say, it's just the 4 walls basically, but
yeah.
You're getting taken back in time when Gordon's telling you the story, you know, and you know, and it's fascinating because as we said before we came on, a lot of these places people don't know about. I drive by them every day.
Correct.
You know, I mean, like Stirling Rugby Club, I found that quite fascinating. Excuse the cough, by the way, it really is annoying. The battle actually took place where the rugby pitch is. You know, and I was talking to one of the guys at the club when we were filming there, and the guys were like, we're here every Saturday. You know, I didn't have a clue that this is where the actual battle took place. And then Gordon describing, you know, how the night before they were up at the Wallace Monument looking down on the battlefield and planning everything out. And I found it really, really fascinating. And it's wee things like that. I mean, how many people drive by Stirling Rugby Club every day? You know, dozens.
It's even, Scott, people will go across the bridge. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm 16. I've only seen it once. But if you go over the bridge and you look down, it's probably about half a mile. If it's really, really, really sunny and it's been a really warm summer and the water's low, you can actually see the old bridge. You can see the foundations of the actual old bridge there. And again, I mean, I've been on it like the Wallace Monument for donkeys, really, because if I was an American and I came over and I came to Stirling Bridge and, you know, what else, it's absolutely wonderful, and you went to the Wallace Monument, this is all great, blah, 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 blah. And I don't know much it is to come over from America, whatever, to Scotland, whatever, I don't know, say 5-6 grand, say, for instance, for a week, whatever. And you go back and then you maybe go on the Society of William Wallace site, or Max, you might do a story, or with what you do, Scott, with Gambit Kenneth. It's only a mile and a bit, if that, from the actual Wallace Monument. And you'd be raging if that's what you went over for, and you think you know it's there. It's only a mile away. Do you know what I mean? So that's what annoys me. See, they should have. I've always got, and I don't know how you find it, Max, with what you do. I don't know if you get involved with councils or MPs or anything like that sort of thing. But a lot of what we do, and like building monuments and getting plaques put up and things like that, because it's Wallace, it's automatically like classed as SNP, basically, basically bottom line. So a lot of what we've tried to do has been really difficult because like local councils don't want it done because they just class you as being a nationalist, SNP. So we're not having, I mean, we built a monument in Glasgow, which took us 7 years to get it built because the council didn't want it built. Basically, bottom line, it's 2 SNP, it's 2 Scottish, whatever else. And because of what we're involved in, like with the Wallace, or you're anti-English, you're this, you're that. I mean, I've got a plaque to do with Davies Walk that he did in 2005 for the 700th anniversary. That took me 6 months to put that, and that's in a Grade 1 listed building in London. Do you know what I mean? And the English Heritage guys, because involved with the director of English Heritage with regards to that. The guy couldn't be nicer. Do you know what I mean? It took me 6 months to get that done in a foreign, technically speaking, it's a foreign country. Whereas in Glasgow, in my own country, where William Wallace was born and sort of fought for Scottish independence, it's taken me 7 years because you don't want to build it. It's a bit like nuts, really. And I don't know if you came across any of that sort of, not hostility, that's not the right word, but like trying to block certain things. I don't know.
You see, I mean, as you were saying there, Gary, some people think, well, anti-English, we hate the English, blah, 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 it's all political, SNP. But it's not. it's a big part of our history. You know, I mean, we all know what happened with Jude Wallace and the English, Robert the Bruce, etc. But it's not that we're trying to rub it into people's faces. You know, like we beat you so many 100 years ago, and you're just celebrating a sort of national hero and a patriot of your sort of your history, basically.
I
love English history. I absolutely love English history. I love the Welsh history. I love the Irish history. It involves us all. Yeah. I'm not anti anything, but we need it all, or we wouldn't have our history. I study King Edward I. I study Alexander III. I study the marriages and intermarriages that made all these the coming of the Normans.
Yeah.
The coming of the Normans, William the Conqueror, and then King David I, and then Normans coming north and getting lands here. I love it before then. The Romans go back to the tribal times. Yeah. So there's no anti-anything for me. And my channel has been and never will be a political platform. No way. I'm passionate about my history. Yeah. And I'm passionate about what history's done to me.
I mean, the Society of William Wallace is apolitical as well, so we don't get involved with politics. Whether you do individually wise, Max, that's a totally different kettle of fish. But as the broaden within the history and with your channel, you don't. But I agree. I mean, I believe myself. I mean, I'm 60 years of age now. I don't know how old you are, Max or Scott, but I'm a totally different person.
Telling you.
Yeah, no, we'll go past that stage. But I'm a totally different person to when I was 12, 13. Or to when I was 21, to when I was 25, because you learn, you do things.
Absolutely,
no doubt about it. You don't do it again. You become a better person. So a country for me is the same thing. Do you know what I mean? We did that in 12, but we ain't any different now, really, technically speaking, to what we were when Wallace and Bruce were there. We ain't changed, and I believe that's to do with the fact that history wasn't taught at schools for many, many years. And the best thing I can probably say, I did a talk at a care home I was asked to do years ago, and they were all 75, 80, 90. And I asked the question when the Battle of Hastings was. And I had 80 hands up. Because we all know it was 1066, because that's what I get taught at school. When was the Battle of Bannockburn? I didn't even have a hand up, mate. Nobody had a clue. Because they weren't taught it. We were all taught the Battle of Hastings, but we weren't taught. That generation wasn't taught Wallace or Bruce or the Jacobites or anything like that at all. And again, we're getting involved with politics now. I believe that is if you want to destroy a country, you destroy its history, or you withdraw its history from the actual people, and then that then affects it. Whereas now we've got the likes of yourself, Max, with YouTube and things like that. People can, or you've got Google now. You can Google Wallace, you can Google Bruce, you can go on YouTube and watch these films about them and things like that. So it does make it a lot more difficult. But
you touched on something really good there, though, Gary. And it's something that people don't give a lot of thought of as well. Wallace died young. So he's possibly around 32 when life was taken from him. But Robert the Bruce that killed John Comyn was not the same Robert the Bruce that won the Battle of Bannockburn. It was not the same Robert the Bruce that died near Renton in the parish of Cardross at 54 years old. So he's changed. That life shaped him. The experiences have shaped him. He's lost a lot. He's did a lot. He probably has penance for a lot of things he did. So we tend to look up, Robert the Bruce. Oh, he murdered John Comyn. He won the Battle of Bannockburn. He's done this and that. But you're talking about a very different man through different phases of his development.
And then again, Max, you then get involved in, was it Robert the Bruce that killed John Comyn? I know he stabbed him, but did he actually do that fatal blow?
Well, I've got more thoughts on that. I made a film about that as well, because I don't know what the narrative on that, but yeah.
Yeah, but and I think that's why
I'm happy to go into that, though.
Oh, yeah, listen, I've got no issues. I mean, I personally don't think he did, personally. In my opinion, I don't think he did. But that's the problem we've got with Scottish history is because a lot of it wasn't written down. You know, it was more word of mouth. And you know yourself, we could have 25 guys start one story there, get to the end, and it'll be a totally different story than you actually started off with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, so I think Scottish history does make it, and that's why I think the likes of us, Max. I mean, I don't like mentioning like historians' names. There was a couple of historians that I know, and I spoke to Davey and me one day, and was like going, I envy what you can do, Davey, because then that's what I said at the start. 2 and 2 makes 5. You can go with that. I can't. Do you know what I mean? And then when I went to her and asked her to sort of for some backing with the Bell of the Bray, don't get me wrong, like Garry, I'll give you 100% backing as much as you like. I think it's a really good idea, but I can't stand up and go that happened because I can't prove it. Do you know what I mean? Because 2 and 2 needs to make 4. And that's why it's a little bit with the Wallace letter that we got that back, is the French have actually lost one actual major part that would 100% prove that the King gave it to William Wallace. And they've lost that bit of paper, which is annoying, I think is the word.
So that's, I mean, just jumping back to the Braveheart film again. You know, I mean, Braveheart came out in 1990. I'm going to take a guess at this. 96, I want to say.
The thing says like 95, was it not 95?
95, 90,
so.
96. And just so you were saying there, you know, I mean,
95.
Was it 95? I wasn't far off. I was 1 year out.
Of course, mate. You're close.
I was just about there, but no further. I was saying, so I mean, Braveheart came out, you know, and I'll be honest with you, I'd heard in school, just when you mentioned, you know, history in school, I get kicked out of history because I just wasn't interested. You know, I knew the name William Wallace, you know, but I didn't know anything about the guy. And it was a film, we watched the film Braveheart. Okay, it's not 100% accurate, you know, but I thought, well, wait a minute, there's a lot more to this guy than just a name. So it did make you kind of go and start hunting out, you know, searching books on William Wallace, who he is, what he done. And it's no, is it 100% correct? It's to the best of your knowledge, you know, when you're putting things across.
The one thing I did like about the film is the bit where he's, and you don't get me wrong, I know the princess was about 6 or 7 at the time, so that's absolute garbage. But you know, it's 20 years of a difference. So we'll just go with anybody. Seems like a plan. But when he's in and he's speaking to the king and or to the king sort of, and he starts speaking in Latin to the princess, and Wallace jumps in and replies back in Latin, and then says, "Oh, by the way, do you want to speak in French as well? Because I can speak French as well." Wallace could do all that, and I know the history bit was it, but that wee bit, I thought the way they've done that, I was like, "Well, that's really clever," because you're actually showing that Wallace actually wasn't just an idiot. He was a clever man. You know, he's well educated, and the way they did that in the film was good. And the other thing I was saying, like when we were in Trim, and I was just talking about the actors and what it means to them. And we were there, and like Mel Gibson was there watching the film like on the big screen. And when it comes to the bit where he goes, Sons of Scotland, I am William Wallace. I was watching Mel Gibson as he was on the screen doing it, and he was actually saying the words, watching the film while he was watching the film. Which I thought that was quite good actually too. I thought, you've also got, and when you speak to him, he has got a great pride of what he did with the film, and I think that's good.
Oh, he must have, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I mean, you think it came out in 1995, and as you were just saying there, Garry, you know, he does the speech. Do we actually know whether Wallace made that speech? But if he didn't, you know, it's still used quite widely today, especially with, I'm not getting into politics, but with current events that are going on, shall we say. you know, there's a lot of videos appearing on TikTok, you know, with Scotland, and a lot of them use that speech. I used it as well, actually, on TikTok
Don't
last
get me
week.
wrong, mate. It's an absolutely bloody brilliant speech. I mean, it's an absolutely outstanding speech. I mean, I know it off by heart, but I mean, it's an absolute belting speech, to be honest with you. I mean, he would have said something. Do you? I mean, he would have said something. And I think the other thing as well, Max, the one thing I like about Robert the Bruce at the start of Bannockburn, when all the Scots kneel down because they're getting, like, you know, the priests are there and they're giving them prayers, obviously, before, you know, in case they die, whatever. And then somebody says to Edward the First, "Oh, look at them, they're all bending down, they're all sort of kneeling down to show homage to you." And the guy's going, "No, they're not, by the way."
Yeah.
No, they're not.
I mean, with Robert the Bruce, see, I don't know very much about Robert the Bruce. This is your department, Max, and yours, Gary. In the film Braveheart, right, I'm just going to base it on this. It shows Robert the Bruce meeting up with Wallace when Wallace is appointed Guardian of Scotland. I think the film shows that's when Bruce first takes notice of him. And then they have a few exchanges, you know, throughout the film. Just for you guys were talking before we came on, do you think the two of them actually did cross paths at one point? Also, as well, the film shows it was the Bruce that betrayed Wallace, you know, was captured and stuff like that. But how do you think they actually did cross paths at some point? And
I'd be shocked if they didn't, which is what we're deciding, what we're discussing before, because of what they were involved in. Although, as I said, as Max and you talked about as well, Wallace was fighting in the name of John Balliol, which was obviously sort of the guy that was king at the time. So obviously there was issues between him and Bruce there as well. But the thing for me with the film, although it says Bruce betrayed him, he didn't. And again, this is another problem we've got as well, which we keep talking about with Wallace. When Wallace went to Rob Royston and where he was captured, he was either there to meet Robert the Bruce, where a note was there that he would to go and see Robert the Bruce, or he was there to see the priest. But again, we can't prove that. And the other issue that we've got there is, I mean, we're sure Wallace had at least 6 or 7 documents on him when he was captured. Now, the only document that we managed to get is like the letter from the French king, which is the safe conduct letter. But that's the only letter that we've managed to actually know that's there. And even that was put on Google by mistake by, I can't remember the name of the places that held it. That'll come back to me. And they put it on the internet by mistake. They should never have been there. So we would never have known it was there. So if the English had more documentation there, it might make life a little. You can maybe put 2 and 2 together and then start sort of getting 4. Again, with the Pope as well. I mean, we've written to the Vatican on numerous occasions. They'll have books there. They'll have history, because everything back in the day was written down there. We've not had a reply back. Yeah, you know, the usual. Yeah, we'll come back to you. And that was like 4 years ago. Yeah, nothing. But if we could get into the vaults of the Vatican and then read up in Scottish history, English history as well, at that point, it would probably give us a little bit more idea or more, you know, what exactly was going on in Scotland at that time, especially with sort of Wallace, because with that letter that Wallace got, the safe conduct letter, he was granted to see the Pope, an audience with the Pope, which is basically what the safe conduct letter is. Now, I don't believe for a second Wallace got that and didn't go and see the Pope. Do you know what I mean? I generally don't believe that he didn't. But again, it's amazing. So it would help if people were a little bit more helpful. I
think one of the binding factors, as well, Gary and Scott, is that they would certainly have been in each other's circles. But I find it fantastical that when you look at the meeting in Peebles in 1299, Wallace had 2 brothers, John and Malcolm, that were in the company of Robert Bruce in his camp.
Yeah.
And there's an argument there with Bruce in common, where common assaults Bruce. they've got to be prized apart. And Lamberton's also assaulted, and they're accused. They never trusted Lamberton again. They were pointing fingers at Lamberton, Bruce, saying, "You two guys in cahoots." It's and the Commons had good reason as well not to trust them. But Wallace's brothers in the Bruce camp, and we know that Wallace, as far as we know, factual, was a Balliol fighter.
Correct.
Whereas Alan, most likely his dad, John and Malcolm, I mean, John got executed 1 year after his brother William, or as part in the.
I think the thing with Wallace and fighting under the name of John Bailey, I mean, I think this is not just talking about Wallace, but I think this is a Scottish trait. I think. That's the rightful heir to the throne, John Balliol. I will fight for John Balliol. The English were slightly different too. We don't like him because he's a Protestant, so we'll get rid of him. Or we don't like them because they're like, we'll just get rid of them. Do you know what I mean? I think with Scotland, even like with Bonnie Prince Charlie and the Jacobite, Scotland was always that is the rightful heir to the throne. End of story. I don't agree. Take away the political wise or this or that or sort of whatever else. And when Bruce was king, everybody followed Bruce as well. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's a Scottish trait. I think because
I think if you sat in the castle of Lochmaben with the grandfather, the competitor, he was a very strong character. Obviously, there's a deep-rooted adversary with the Balliols in the Common faction.
Yeah. Oh, very much so. Very, very much so.
And there were rapid changes in the political world there. And it was always inculcated into Bruce that this was his right.
Correct, yeah.
Whether Edward saw it as or Balliol had the better claim didn't matter. Didn't matter to the Bruces one bit. I
agree with that. Agreed.
Once Bruce was edged out of the 10 representatives, which to me led to the murder of Comyn, Bruce was edged out of that. He wasn't a part of that. And he was in Edward's peace before Comyn come into it. You got the Battle of Roslin and stuff like that. Bruce is suddenly like, I've got to make my play. I got to make. He's got to go. Now this is a young Bruce talking. This is not the 54-year-old Bruce, the commander in the army at Bannockburn. This is a guy saying, "I got to make my play right now. Otherwise, we're finished."
Yeah, agreed.
And he's got to go. And we could talk about whether it's an argument that got out of hand or it was premeditated murder. I can go into that, but I think the grandfather had inculcated in Bruce from a young age. Edward Bruce, and that was the same as well. I think he was very much like his brother Robert. The friction, these lands were right next to each other. When you got Carrick, when you got Dumfries, the Commons, most powerful landowning family in Scotland at the time.
Yeah.
And to get this man out of the way, I think was imperative. Reminiscent of a modern day mafia, it was.
Yeah, very much so. But do you not think as well, though, Max? Like, see, just going back to Wallace, and because I'm involved in Bruce in this as well. Obviously, in the film Braveheart, Bruce is seen as that he was at the Battle of Bannockburn, which is that's absolutely garbage anyway. But you know that as well. You know what I mean? But Bruce was in his own land, burning his land at that point. Just I can't mind what the word for this. So it meant that the armies can't eat like food and eat because there's no stuff there. There's a word for that. I can't remember what it is.
He learned that early. The scorched earth policy.
That's the word. That's the word. Yeah, I was getting that. I keep getting that.
Leave them nothing. Yeah.
And that for me means that to me shows, from Bruce's point of view with Wallace, that I don't mean he was backing him because that's not really the right word, whatever. But there's no need for Bruce to burn his own lands. Do you know what I mean? But he did, like, to stop Longshanks moving forward. And again, typical Scottish trait as well. And Wallace didn't want to fight the Battle of Falkirk. He get grassed up again. Somebody told Longshanks where he was. Do you know what I mean? And because Wallace was doing that as well, he was scorching the earth and all that, and it nearly worked. The English army were people were going, sod this for the game of soldiers. We're going home. There was not as much food there as whatever else. So they maybe like if he wasn't told where Wallace was, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, that army would have went back home again, and then we could be in a totally different sort of situation. But from the Bruce point of view, as I said, I still think Bruce knighted Wallace. I still believe that. But again, as we said before, we can't prove that.
Said before we went live, you touched on the fact that Wallace had nothing to lose except his life.
Correct.
Okay.
Bruce had his whole.
There's a lot to lose.
Very much so.
Yeah, they were talking about John Stewart, and Bishop Wishart had incited this bloody man. This was his reputation. This chief of brigands, this bloody man called William Wallace. Other reports at Perth that he was known as a thief, a certain known thief. Whether that's the same Wallace, we don't know, but we go with that. But Wallace got disgusted after the capitulation at Irvine. He even went down to Bishop Wishart's lands in Ancram in the Scottish borders and raided them. And he took his sons away captive. And I think even when Wallace was raiding into Northern England, he couldn't always even control his own men. So, he was leadership, he was a guardian, but he didn't have that high authority figure of a political nature, like a king or a would-be king, to keep them all in hand. But I think his downfall was that he was so uncompromising, and he was he wouldn't give an inch that way. And I think the political nature of Scotland at the time is that they did have a lot to lose, because at the end of the day, Edward says, I'm not going to send my men to look for him anymore. You're going to find them for me. You bring them to me, or the deals are off.
Do you think, sorry, do you think that Wallace, as I said, one man that led a nation, do you think that Wallace's appeal to the people of Scotland, just you talk about political and stuff like that, it kind of reminds you of a court, basically, like Henry VIII's court. I know a totally different time frame, but a lot of the people at Henry's court were only interested in what they could get out of it, lands, titles, etc. Do you think a lot of the nobles in Wallace's time were the same kind of frame of mind, but people saw Wallace, it's just as you said, he wasn't interested in politics. He wasn't interested in riches or how much land they could get. And this is where the people needed. They needed this man who did care whether, the battle was won or lost. Does that make sense?
I think it's like, why are you fighting? And in fairness, we can go into Braveheart as well when they're sitting and the guy turns and he goes, I'm not fighting for them to get more land. So you probably did get that. You were thinking, well, hold on a second, I'm going to lose my wife, my husband, my son, whatever else, just so Joe Blows can get a bigger castle. So I think there is a little bit of that, though. But I think, again, what we said before, I think with the Scots was, if the king said you're fighting, you fought, basically, bottom line, really. Was I think, and we've spoken at this before, Scott, I think, and Max, I don't know how you think about it, but I think it shows you what type of person that Wallace was. Whereas King Robert the Bruce could stand up and go, I'm the king, let's fight. People will fight without questioning that because he is the king. That's what they do. For Wallace to achieve what he did and get a whole country behind him, backing him, it's unbelievable. Because he was not, I'm not saying he was a commoner, because he certainly wasn't. But that people didn't fight for Wallace. That's not what you did. For the people like that, you didn't do that. So he must have been he must have been charismatic.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Whatever to get people like to go, listen, I'm with you, big man, let's go for it. Let's go and do that. So I think people sometimes don't realise with Wallace. I'm not saying it was easy for Bruce, because I'm not, because but he was the king. So king, fight, okay, let's go. Where are we meeting? But as you're saying, there was so much that he could lose through that, and it's not just King Robert the Bruce, it's his whole family for the next generation, next 200, 300, 400 years of generation. You could lose all those castles you've got and land and whatever else, and the Bruce clan's gone. Do you know what I mean? So I get
it almost was.
Basically, because
Bruce
if
had
he lost Bannockburn, he was knackered.
Absolutely. After Methven, when he lost, and then the run at Dalry, and he was almost finished and mocked. When he come back, he had a mountain of battles to win at home before he ever thought about fighting Edward.
Yeah, agreed.
But before he ever thought about fighting Edward, he had as many Scots enemies as he did south of the border. Yeah. And it took a great deal of planning genius to overcome that, and some good fortune as well. I
think in fairness, Max, you'll need that anyway, mate. I mean, you need a little bit of luck. Everything. I mean, even like the Battle of Stirling Bridge. I mean, Wallace and Davody couldn't believe their luck when the English decided to go 2-2 over the bridge. I mean, that just seriously, what are you doing, boys? This will do for us. Do you know what I mean? So you do need a little bit of luck with regards to that. But
well, it must have been fascinating that they've come over. They've got back. They've come over twice, gone back, and a third. What are they doing? So there's a great deal of opportunism comes with battles, and it happened at Bannockburn as well. Nothing goes down to a T. Plans can go generally well, but you need to be an opportunist and see it.
And even with Bannockburn as well, I mean, with the common folk that came who thought the battle had sort of finished at that point, it was like probably 70-30 towards the Scots at that point, but they thought the battle was finished. But they looked like reinforcements coming. Do you mean coming over the hill, whatever? And again, they're going, oh my God, let's go. And it wasn't even reinforcements. They were there to sort of see if their loved ones were all right, or let's pick up a couple of side swords or ducks. So again, you're right, you need wee bits of luck. But then when you're fighting against like an army, because the Bannockburn army, like the Scots was just normal people. The English one had been fighting in France for years, fighting wars left, right. So, I mean, they were an actual army as such. So for Scotland to actually beat them, I mean, you look at the thing as well. I mean, I don't know if I'm right or wrong. And again, this is probably me backing up Wallace again. But when Wallace won the Battle of Stirling Bridge, that's the first time like a smaller nation had really beat a bigger nation. Do you know what I mean? So worldwide, people must have been going, Scotland's just beating England. Scotland's just beating England. At a battle and all that. And then other wee countries may say, hold on a second here. This might be something that we can do as well and go down. So you don't know the wider repercussions of Stirling Bridge. And again, with the guys at Bannockburn, we've already beaten them at Stirling Bridge, so we can do it again here today as well. And the thing, which you'll know yourself, Max, with the Sheltrons that Wallace used at Falkirk worked on the basis that it did stop the cavalry. But with the archers coming in, they weren't in a situation that they could actually move, if that makes sense, which means they get decimated, and that's why they lost the Battle of Falkirk. Whereas at Bannockburn, Bruce went, the Sheltrons work, but what we'll do is we'll make our Sheltrons movable. They can move. Do you know what I mean? So if the archers start going, we can actually move away from the actual arrows. So Bruce learnt from that as well. Do you know what I mean? As to what went right for Wallace, what went wrong. Bruce then goes, right, well, let's take that. And so that's why I think to a certain extent, Bruce must have, no, I don't mean in the inner circle and all that, but he must have been watching, and maybe people are coming back and saying, this happened, this is why we lost. Okay, let's go away and think. So, especially if you're fighting against cavalry, and Scotland didn't really have a big, massive cavalry at that stage. So to fight them against like younger sort of, just like to fight people is a lot more difficult. So to come up with this idea of using spears and things like that, I think that within itself is brilliant, in my opinion. Whether that's Wallace and Bruce both using them.
I was talking to Gordon about this when we done Loudon Hill a few months back. Just you were saying, Gary, about Scotland beating England. England, a big army, years and years experience at fighting, and you get Scotland just, I don't want to use the word commoners, but landowners, farmers, all the rest of it, very little experience of fighting. I spoke to Gordon about this, I say, and I think one of the reasons Scotland was so successful in that aspect was because Scotland were fighting with their heart, whereas England were just fighting with their body. You know, I mean, thousands of Englishmen, they had to come and fight. You know,
it's a job.
It was their job, and if they refused, then chances are they'd be executed, and probably their family would suffer as well. So you get
lose their lands.
A lot of these, and they lose everything. So you get a lot of these English soldiers, you know, and okay, there would have been a certain percentage who were fighting with their heart, but I think there's that other percentage that really didn't care, you know, who won, Scotland or England, as long as they were okay and their family was okay. Whereas you've got the Scots on the other side who are really, really passionate about why they're there. This is your country. You're not taking it off us, and it's just sheer determination with them.
Scotland had their passion, but they also had distance. Compared to the Welsh, the Welsh weren't any less passionate about the Scots about defending their land. Their problem was they were next door, and when Edward come north to Falkirk, and the scorched earth policy, and they were starving them out. I mean, there was mutiny in the English army. The Welsh were picking off. That they had wine and no food, which really kicked things off. And there was rumors that the Welsh were going to go over to the Scots. So that was a really volatile situation. And the English army were almost beat without anyone getting hurt and fighting. And it was Edward's scouts that told them that the Scots are not that far away. They're not far ahead. And he made some remark, well, if the English go over to the Welsh go over to Scots, we'll take the two of them down.
We'll just take them on down at the same time.
So England coming up here, the English armies coming up here was a very difficult thing to do.
Well, very much so.
Once they left Edinburgh and come into Falkirk up towards the Torwood and Stirling, they were in treacherous, famine-ravaged land. And there's no better way to deplete an army than
the stomach.
All the victuals.
The stomach,
Another thing I found surprising was just back to the talk about history and how a lot of people are not ignorant of the fact that they don't know them. Same as I was before I started all this. But a few folk say, William Wallace, he won the Battle of Bannockburn. I think, no, he never. Wallace had been murdered 13,
14, 9 years.
9 years prior to the battle, and it's amazing how little recognition Robert the Bruce actually gets because they pin the Battle of Bannockburn like their own Wallace.
But I think but that's down to the film, though. If I'm totally honest with you, I think with people and what people know about Wallace more than Bruce because of Braveheart. In my opinion, Bruce doesn't get this as recognition as such purely because the film Outlaw King wasn't in the same class as Braveheart, although Outlaw King was probably closer historically wise than what Braveheart was, which is quite scary. But I think that's why from that point. But then in saying that, you can then say, I mean, the amount of fights that I've had, not fights, but sort of like, people talk about, the films historically, it's not right and blah, 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 it's a lot of garbage, because that's what they've read. They've read that in the Daily Record or the Daily Mail or the historical way the film's garbage. Don't watch it. I watched the Titanic. The historical ways of that's not garbage. Pearl Harbor, historical ways of these type of films is no right. The Guns of Navarone never happened. But you don't get as much like stuff in the press going, that's a lot of garbage. This is rubbish, because they wanted to suppress the actual feeling that people got of the pride of being Scottish by watching the actual film itself. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm saying. People say, I'd go, okay, I know the history of the film. I know what parts are right and what, but I know that because that's what I do. Okay, you tell me what parts are right then. Do you know what I mean? And then I put it onto them, and they'll go, "Oh, Bruce and Wallace weren't born in the same era." All right, okay then. Well, like Bruce was born 1274. Wallace was 1274. If you even think about Wallace was born in 1305, Bannockburn's 1314, 9 years. Of course, we were born in the same era. Do you know what I mean? And it's, but people don't, people just, that's why I think when I was saying beforehand, like the press and that sort of thing, and that's why the likes of what you do, Max, I think is massively important now, because the press isn't, in my opinion, as important as what it was, say, 20, 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. Because people can go on to and watch it on a YouTube channel and go, right, I'm going to listen to Max now because he talks rather than reading someone in like a unionist paper which is giving it this whatever spiel. They can go and watch you and go, well, I've got more time of what Max is saying now. So I don't think journalism now is as big as making people. I mean, even like if you're going into politics with the referendum. The amount of old people that voted no because they were scared about their pensions, because that's what the BBC News was telling them, that's what the Daily Record, the Sun, the Daily Mail were telling them, the Express and all the rest of it. And they believed that because that's what they've been brought up with in their era. Whereas the younger generation now are getting brought up with Facebook, Twitter, people like yourself, Max. They can question a lot more now. They've got more ways of going or more different places to go to get their information from, rather than you're going to be told, I'm going to tell you what's happening and that's what you're going to be told. End of story. As I was saying with the care home going, we all know when the Battle of Hastings was, but we don't know when Battle of Bannockburn was. They're all Scottish. They should know when the Battle of Hastings was. It's irrelevant in Scotland. Whereas Bannockburn's massively important to us. So I think like what you're doing, and it just makes the whole history. And again, it's more enjoyable, Max, as well, rather than listening to some boring guy talking about it on the news, whatever. You've got somebody.
Yeah.
If you get somebody like yourself or Davey or like myself, it's passionate about it. Mm. That's infectious. So somebody will watch your programme. Same with Gordon as well. Gordon's infectious if you listen to Gordon because he cares about what he's talking about. People will listen to that because they'll buy into what you're saying.
100%. I mean, that's as I say. I found Max on, on I was going to say Facebook, TikTok, and so I was again, Braveheart, nearly almost 30 years since it was made, and it's no accurate. I think the basic story is true. The Wallace fighting the English, blah blah blah. But a lot has been filled in. A lot of the holes have been filled in by hearsay and stuff like that. Things we'll probably never ever know. But it's when you listen to guys like Max, Gordon, and yourself, Garry, as well, when you are talking about it, you can feel the passion in it, and you think these guys know what they're talking about. And as you say, you don't want to read out a book, you don't want to listen to some boring cabbage reading the news on TV or something. William Wallace did this and he went here, blah blah blah. And but when you meet guys like yourself and Max, these guys know what they're talking about, and you learn a hell of a lot more. And
people
ignites people's interest.
Yeah, people also love fiction if it's good. I mean, take Outlaw King. For me, the star of that show is probably the guy that played Douglas. And then you put Douglas on the battlefield, swiping everybody, going, "What's my effing name?" That's a T-shirt right there, and it's brilliant. And you have no idea that was anything like Douglas, or he said anything like that. But it's good, and they've latched onto it. It's good fiction, so it doesn't matter to people if that's true or not. I
mean, I don't know how
that ego.
I don't know how you think about it, Max, but I think it's a disgrace in the history of Scotland, whatever, that just so you're talking about James Douglas, nobody knows about him really. Andrew De Maury as well, nobody knows about him. Yeah. And I think these two,
Thomas Randall.
Douglas, people should know who these people are. Do you know what I mean? I mean, Douglas for me is up there with Wallace and Bruce, as in fighting and that type of guy. I mean, the scary thing for me is there's a commemoration every year in Tebber to do with Bruce, to do with Douglas, and obviously I'll stroke Bruce, whatever, but basically to do with Douglas, and that's in Spain. Do you know what I mean? Spain know more about the Black Douglas and most people in freaking Scotland do.
And they're passionate about them in that
yeah,
town.
and they're massively passionate about it, and that annoys me. Do you know what I mean with the guy? But again, you then get involved with Scotland, and I don't know yourself, Matt. I mean, we've been involved with Historic Scotland, and these people are good at, like, with a pen and a bit of paper. Do you know what I mean? Do they have a passion for Scottish history? No, they're not really interested, mate, to be honest with you. I can do a dot and an I, and I can make sure that our budget matches and it all goes right. But do I really care about Scottish history? No, I'm not really that bothered with it. And that's guys that are in charge of our, in charge of the people that's supposed to be, like, telling people what to do. And I think the things that we do, with Society doing what we've done in the past, David did it as well. We do talks at schools. We take guns and swords to schools. Kids at 8 and 9, you're giving them a broadsword or a claymore and going, "You can hold it, son." That brings their whole imagination running riot. Then, do you know what I mean? You know, and if you do, then that you've then not got just your teacher talking about William Wallace and Bruce. You've got a guy coming in dressed up with gear on, giving you broadswords like Dirks and whatever else. The kids are going, "This is brilliant," and then that gets them going. So they'll be good for the next sort of future generation. Then, do you know what I mean?
And they go home and say, "Oh, mum and dad, you know, we learned about William Wallace today in school. You know, who was, you know, and can get their parents into." But I know what you mean, Gary, about it annoys me as well when people are forgotten about, basically. You know, people who play, you obviously get Wallace, you get Bruce, but there's a lot of people behind the scenes as well, you might call it that don't get talked about, and they deserve to be talked about. That's how Tracy was saying, "Hi, a wee while back. We were doing a series on the Tudors, and we covered the Henry and his wives, but now we're doing the people that behind the scenes, the people who had an impact on, you know, what happened when Henry's courting." And so it's the same with Wallace and the Bruce. There was a lot of people, you know, helping them, you know, whatever, fighting beside them that have just been forgotten about. You know, and you said you walk up and say, "Who's so and so?" Don't have a clue, but if you say, "Who's William Wallace?" you have more chance of getting an answer.
But then saying that though, Scott, as I said before, that if you'd asked that same question 35, 40 years ago, trust me, mate, most people wouldn't have known who William Wallace was. I mean,
exactly.
What you're saying now, that's purely because of the film.
Or his brothers as well. But it's the same with Bruce. He's got 3 brothers executed. Yeah. Thomas, Alexander, Niall or Nigel. It's the torturous what his women had to endure. Elizabeth de Bar, his daughter, Isabella Macduff, all of them. The rage of Edward, and Bruce's wife's got her dad, who's Edward's right-hand man, the Earl of Ulster, standing there at Lanarkos beside her while he condemns her. Bruce has lost everything.
Oh, by a country mile.
Before he even won any military thing, he'd lost a lot. Edward Bruce killed in battle later, but he's lost his entire family.
When you're saying, Max, sorry, Robert the Bruce's 3 brothers. I'll be honest with you, I didn't know he had brothers.
Okay.
So I put my hands up to that. I didn't know he had brothers. So it makes you wonder, who were these guys? Who were these 3 brothers? What did they do? What did they do? Deserve to be executed? Did they, do something bad, or was it just a way to get rid of them, get them out of the picture? Was it a way to get back at Bruce? Because
we're actually annoyed because we went over for trim for Braveheart 30. Edward's buried in Ireland, and we actually tried to find it. There was no one. We couldn't even Google it and do a map thing because there was no internet or nothing. So we were gubbed. I know Shah went back and found it, but we so that was annoying. The fact that sort of we couldn't find it because again. I mean, it's even like in Trim Castle, which is York Castle in the film. That's on the Boyne, So if you go about a mile up the road, you can go and there's wee talks in there to do with the battle. And I'm not particularly into the Battle of Boyne as such. Whatever, either way, get too much hassle in Glasgow through it all. But it's still a bit of history, and we still went, and it was really, really interesting going and listening to the girl. Although it was quite funny because we'd get chased. we were going home, and this lassie's coming on, this red coat's coming along with this rapier, and she's talking about this rapier sword, and Stuart Duncan was there, he's going, Garry, just going to go back to she's going, this is the sword that they use, look at it, it's amazing, look what it does, and Stuart's going, Garry, go back to the car, put your Jacobite gear on, son, bring out the claymore and the broadsword, and we'll try to shove our rapier sword up. The sun don't shine, you know what I mean? Which I thought was quite funny. But again, that was interesting because, I mean, I don't know if you've heard, have you heard a musket going off, Max?
Yeah.
It's loud. It's really, really loud. And in my head, I'm thinking, well, I've heard it going off, and it's really scary. So how do horses not react to that? Do you know what I mean? So the girl was there, she was talking. I said, look, can I ask you a quick question? I said, look, just because I've heard musket go, I know it's loud. And then obviously you've got cannons going on in the battlefield. Why don't horses react to that? Do you know what I mean? And what she said was what they did was they fired a musket or a cannon and then fed the horse straight after it. So it meant that the horse, when it had a musket going, if it didn't get scared, he thought it was going to get fed. And you're thinking, like 100 years ago, that's quite scary, actually. It's quite psychologically clever, I think.
Well, I'm a dog trainer. So if we want our dogs not to be gun shy, like if you're training a gun dog, you're going to pair the gunshot with something really good. And you're going to desensitize it, say, from a distance, or you're going to muffle the shot or something like that, but pair it with a retrieve or some food or something good. So, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I'm noticing the time, guys. I'm going to wind it up soon. Just one last wee bit to cover. I want to bring you back on, okay? I think you've got a lot more to talk about, but I'm conscious of the time. The Battle of Bannockburn, obviously, the Scots won it. What impact do you guys think it had on Scottish history if the English had won it instead of the Scots?
Bruce would have been finished because you've got the disinherited.
He's gone.
Coming back after that, I mean, John Comyn's son was also killed in the charge at Bannockburn. So you had everybody that Bruce had ousted out of Scotland on the English side. On the side, Edward II. If Bruce had lost Bannockburn, it would have been back under slavery. Edward II slavery, no doubt about that.
It'd be like Wales, I think, Max. I think we'd be like Wales. You'd then become a principality of England rather than.
And of course, it didn't end the war. It was a great
1328. It was 1328 before the English. Obviously.
Bruce would be the terror Northern England after that. They couldn't look to Edward II to protect them, so he would extort them. They would pay extortionate rents that prevent them attacking them, and he would come and collect regularly. So it was quite a time. When you go into, say, 1322 in the Battle of Byland, and these are phenomenal battles. So that's pretty much it. Some people think, what? The Battle of what? Byland? Where's that? It's a phenomenal battle, and it's a great win. And they almost captured Edward II as well. So it's two battles against Bruce's army where Edward II almost gets captured. They didn't let him into Stirling after Bannockburn. Then he got pursued. It says his horse gave out on him at Dunbar, where he got a boat to Berwick, and he was almost spent. So it'd have been terrible if Bruce had lost. But Bruce knew that. Bruce had a year to prepare for that battle. He was a genius, and he carried out his plan brilliantly. Brilliantly planned thing. People don't realise there were two definite and one highly likely. It's possibly 3 skirmishes in the one day, in the first day of the main before the main battle. And a lot of people don't know about that as well. It's a battlefield that encompasses 6 square miles.
Yeah, I don't know what you think, Max, but I always think, because it was fought over 2 days as well,
Definitely, yeah.
In my head, I always laugh in a joke about like, who said stop? So
I mean, between the 2 days.
Aye, like who said right, man, boys.
All right.
It's 6 o'clock. Right? Let's stop.
That's a good point, actually.
We'll see you in the morning at 8 o'clock sharp. I've always thought, who said that? You're sitting back the hell at each other, right? You're lucky, big money, you're about to get it. We're back in the morning for extra time. You know what I mean? I always thought, who said it's like, let's go. Let's go, boys.
That is a good point.
What I will say is everything that I believe about Bannockburn now is not what I believed 10 years ago. And that's a whole new podcast on its own. It's quite a lot's changed through just walking the ground, studying it, researching it, coming to different conclusions, looking at every single available source. There are 14, and there are 8 which are particularly valuable. That's been a meticulous process of really going through that. In fact, it's an obsession for me, and I still do it.
It needs to be, Max. It needs to be for you to get there. I mean, it's a bit like what we do with Wallace. The same. You couldn't do that if you didn't have passion, because it is time consuming. It can take up your life, whatever else. So, you're passionate about it. If you're not, mate, you wouldn't do it because you couldn't. You just wouldn't. It's just. It is that which engrosses. And I don't know about yourself, Max. I mean, I've done it. I mean, I've even at my work when I was coming up, after a night out in London at the time. And on the train, the Scottish guys were talking about Garry's into Wallace, whatever else. And I think it's the same with yourself, Max. If you speak to somebody, and I think we did mention this, and so we touched on it, and the guy's like going, Garry, I'm not really into it. He said, but listen, you speak, and the passion you've got is coming out. He said, I'm engrossed. I'm not even freaking interested in what you're saying, but I am now. And you'll be the same as well, Max, because there is that passion in. No matter what you're talking about, it's Scottish history or it's Scottish football or it's English or whatever you're talking about, if you get passion, somebody will listen to you because it is engrossing, because you know that person that you're talking to is really into it. And then you then, I think, know they're not just spouting rubbish, they've went to work that out. Do you know what I mean? He's not just went on Google and been lazy and read, because I have a Google garbage as well anyway. From my point, I mean, that's one of the things that I do with my kids. If they read something, you know what kids are like. I've got a sore thing, I'll go on to Google. Oh Christ, if you go on to Google with a medical thing, you're dying after the second frigging page. Do you know what I mean? And I'd be like going, so it's, I mean, I've got to say, deep in 6 months. And I always go to my kids and go, right, does that okay? Then go on to Google and tell me when William Wallace was captured. Then please. And they'll come back and go the 5th of August. I says, well, see, precisely, that's not true. It's the bloody 3rd of August. I says, so don't believe everything you read on Google, all right, because it's garbage. Okay, so I'm no longer dying, Dad. No, you're not. Ignore that. Ignore that.
They've got to change the marker as well.
But I totally agree with Garry says, you know, the passion, because I mean, I watch a lot of people on TikTok, you know, a lot of paranormal people, and no offence to them, it's really, you know, some of them you can tell that they're just reading off a bit of paper. You know, they've Googled it, printed it out, and they're sitting there, you know, well, in 1955, so-and-so, and then so-and-so, and you end up switching them off.
Yeah.
Because you can tell when somebody's talking passionately, and when somebody's just, well, I Googled this story, so I'm going to read this out to you. And you think, no, you know what, mate, I'm not interested in that. Just give me somebody that knows what they're talking about. And when somebody's passionate about something, their voice draws you in as well. Yeah, you know, because their voice goes up and down. And the emotion comes out, and it's not just flat, it goes up and down. As you say, the emotion comes out, the passion comes out, and it draws you in, you know, and you feel like you're actually there, kind of thing, you know, and in the moment, basically, if that makes sense, you know.
It's like David Attenborough. It's like David Attenborough. You know, if you listen, I could listen to David Attenborough for absolute hours and just sit I like wildlife. I'm passionate about it. No, I'm not. But Jesus, I would listen to David Attenborough all day. Do you know what I mean? Just with his voice and his passion and his knowledge and just his voice and just everything about it. Do you know what I mean? You would. And I think it's weird what we were saying before, something to a point. And I was just because I was watching the golf last night, to be honest, with the Ryder Cup. And what you were talking about, Scott, is like the Scots having passion and whatever else in the English, and what you were saying, Max, as well, with like all the feasibility of bringing an army up there as well. But the Americans are better at golf than what the Europeans are. But the Europeans have got something which is what we were talking about. They've got a passion to do with the fact that they're not fighting for Europe. That's not the right word, but they're playing golf for Europe for their tour to beat the American tour, and they've got a passion, and that's, in my opinion, that's why Europe beat America more often now. Don't get me wrong, Europe's still got a lot of good players, mind you, don't get me wrong, but there's a camaraderie about it, whereas the Americans are just playing for themselves. And I think that a little bit what we were talking about before, that's why I laughed when you were talking about it, because I was in my head, I'm going, that's just like the golf last night, with Europe winning it, although it was not quite as simple as it should have been, but that's another story.
That was just one idea, and I did speak to Gordon out loud and Hill about it, and I think that's why Scotland were so successful in beating English. You think, all right, Battle of Falkirk weren't too successful, but on the whole, the battle, because these guys were fighting not just for their life, but for their country and their families, their beliefs, whereas the English were fighting because majority of them had to. If they'd rather been doing, I was going to say down the road watching the telly, watching, you know what I mean? If they had the choice to, right, you can fight or you can just go home. I think a lot of them would just say, right, well, I'm off. I'm going back down the road, back to my family, because I really don't want to be here, And but that's just my thoughts on it. But I'm going to wind it up there, Jesse. I've just noticed the time. I don't like keep you too late, but I'll hold on to
Jesus.
I'll hold on to just after we come off for a wee second, if that's all right, guys. So where can people find you, Max?
You can go to YouTube, just look up Robert the Bruce, Genius of Bannockburn. You'll find me on there. You'll find me on TikTok as well, Genius of Bannockburn.
And you either find Garry topless at poolside, in a bar, or on the golf course.
Golf course closer, mate. Golf course.
Or topless with a beer in his hand on the golf course. Maybe it's a combination of three. I don't even want that image.
No, I'm getting quite good. I've not a drink for 2.5 weeks or something like that. Even when we were away, I can't really be bothered with it anymore, to be honest. It's weird.
It's the age.
Getting too old, right? Getting too old for all this waking.
I mean, even I'm younger than you, but I'm not going to disclose my years. But I can happily say it.
I think waking up the next morning feeling bloody awful, mate. I think I've had enough of that rubbish. So, plus the fact I'm playing golf, mate. So I'd rather play golf if I'm honest with you. So get my health situation going. So it's all good. And from our point of view, not so much me because I'm just a member now. But if you look under the Society of William Wallace, you'll get all the documentations of what the boys do there, and they're doing a great job as well. To be honest.
Good on them. Yeah. Good.
So, Genius of Bannockburn, I look up, and the Society of
William Wallace.
William Wallace. But big thanks to these two gentlemen. Hopefully, they want to come back on and continue, especially with Bannockburn, because
Max, total pleasure, mate. By the way,
absolutely,
you, mate.
Max has got me curious now about Bannockburn.
Max, can you do me a favour? Can you send an email to convener@sow.scot?
Fire that again, Garry, please.
Convener
at
SOWW, Society of William Wallace, SOWW.scot.
Is that Scott with two T's?
No, just one, mate. Just one. It's David Reid. So you're sending that to David Reid. That's it, mate. Yeah, that's it. So you're sending that to David Reid, who's the convener. Okay. All right, and I'll let David know that you're going to get in contact with him, because I think it'd be good if the society and yourselves got involved as well, mate. To be honest.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
All right, and because I know that we do commemorations like the Falkirk, Stirling Bridge, that sort of thing. But it'd be good if you came along and maybe did a speech at one of them. But I'll let David know so you're not going blind.
I love it. Yeah,
that makes sense, Max. All right.
Sure.
Sorted, guys.
Right. I'm away for my dinner. I'll see you
Right,
later.
we'll bid you farewell. We'll bid you good night, and you will be seeing these two guys again. So thanks for joining, folks, and enjoy the rest of your week. Cheers out. Bye.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye, Max.
Yeah.
Bye.